Go Hunt Live show hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord to epically reinvent themselves in order to pursue a life full of purpose and passion. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, and the crew there are rock stars when it comes to delivering top quality printing at a cheap price. If you've met me in the last 3 years and I handed you a business card, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. They're my online digital printing company for everything. They do banners, company letterhead, a ton of direct mail pieces, funky decals, even menus for restaurants. Over 30 categories of printing products, and yes, business cards. And they do it fast, and they do it cheap. Jeff has streamlined every little aspect of the business to provide the perfect user experience, delivering the best product in the industry. I have personally been to the offices, and I have seen it firsthand. But see for yourself. Go to PrintDirtCheap.com and use promo code GoHuntLife and get $10 off of your order. Or if you want to get a sample of their work, click on Sample Pack, and they'll mail you one out for free. Go to PrintDirtCheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job.
For anybody else who is thinking about living full-time in an RV, I say 100% go do it, because you'll experience things that other people will never experience in their life, and it'll change you forever, because you will live on less, and you will just appreciate nature and life so much more.
That is Joe Hendricks, and him and his wife and 5-year-old son have been traveling the U.S. in an Airstream for the last year and a half. Prior to this, they had a successful wedding photography business in Nashville, a house, and all the normal stuff. When they went on a vacation visiting the national parks out west, the switch flipped and hit Joe, and he wanted to see the joy that he saw in his wife and son during that trip all of the time. So within 6 months after returning to Nashville, they had bought that Airstream, sold their house and everything in it, and they started their journey literally driving away from the closing on their house sale. But it hasn't gone quite as planned. It's been a lot more difficult making a living as a photographer while on the road. And Joe is completely transparent and shares exactly what they've been through, what they've done right, and what he would have done differently in the last year and a half. But they are still living out of that Airstream trailer. It's just not exactly where he had planned. But as Joe says, this experience has changed him forever. My conversation with Joe Hendricks starts right now. Joe, thanks for jumping on the show today.
My pleasure.
Where are you at right now today, and describe your view?
I am in Brockville, Texas. It's a small little town 2 hours west of San Antonio, and I'm on a par 3 golf course installing some disc golf baskets for the community here.
All right.
And it's pretty bare with some trees. That's about it.
Okay. How old are you? Are you married, and do you have kids?
I just turned 42 a few days ago. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Rhonda, and I have a 5-year-old son who's turning 6 soon. His name is Austin.
Austin. All right. And what are your primary ways that you make a living?
There is only one primary way I make a living, and that's professional photography. And I take pictures, I sell them, I shoot weddings, and I shoot families. And those are the main things. When I say shoot, I take pictures.
Got it. All right. The reason we're talking is that I discovered an article that you had put up on Board Panda over a year ago titled, "I Sold Everything, Bought an Airstream, and Travel America with My Family Indefinitely." And you started out this article with, "I've always been the person to tell people to chase their dreams, so I decided to take my own advice." Take me back to what your life was. Was this 2015, early 2016? When did you write this, or what was going on back then?
Oh, man, it's all a blur now. I believe it was 2015. And we were very successful with wedding photography in Nashville, had a house, and we had just moved my mother-in-law in with us about 6 months earlier. And we went on a trip out west, and we saw Yosemite and some other amazing national parks along the way, and it blew us away. And I thought to myself when I got back to Nashville, how can I do this all the time with my family and make a living? And then that's when the whole idea for traveling full-time around America came about. And it was interesting because I had to convince my wife to go along, and she was not wanting to do this at first. Then I had to convince her to buy an Airstream once she was convinced to travel. She was not convinced about that. But she finally came around, and then I convinced my mother-in-law to come with us too, which is probably the craziest idea I've ever come up with in my life.
Oh, man.
And she did for about 7 days. And that's a story we could probably get into a little later. But, I convinced everybody to do it. And then we set out about 6 months later.
Oh,
we were
wow.
on the road full time.
Okay, so walk me through those 6 months. You guys owned the wedding photography business together? You were both working together?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I do all the photography and anything that has to do with creativity. And my wife does all the communication. So she emails, sets up all my shoots, and I show up and take pictures. It's a wonderful collaboration that I wish upon every photographer.
Okay, and so you owned a house. Was your son Austin in daycare yet, or no?
So my son was not in daycare. He was 4 years old when we had decided to do this, and he wasn't going to school for another 2 years.
Yep.
So it was the perfect opportunity for us to take a big chance and not mess up his life completely if it was all wrong.
Got it. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's from a parent's perspective. I'm not a parent, but when I talked to parents, there are all different types of decisions that go into this. Do we want to really screw up our kids by pulling them out of school, or is it going to be the best thing for them is the flip side of it.
Right.
So you guys go on this trip. Is this the first time you had gone to all of those national parks all at once? Because that sounds like a pretty abrupt decision based on one vacation.
It was very abrupt. I was so moved by that vacation. And the reason I was so moved is I saw my wife come alive in a way that I hadn't seen since we got married. And it was amazing to me, and I wanted to see her like that all the time. And then my son had so much fun. And the two of them lighting up together was the sole reason for me to attempt this, because I wanted to see them happy as possible. And as soon as I saw on that vacation they were happy, there was no doubt in my mind that's what I wanted to do.
So you get back to Nashville. How soon did you convince them? How soon was the house on the market?
The house was on the market as soon as we bought the Airstream.
Okay. Airstreams aren't cheap.
As soon as we made... No, Airstreams are not cheap. I saw them. I fell in love with them. And after doing the math and everything... owning an Airstream and a truck was the same as our mortgage that we had.
All right.
So it just kind of made sense. It was a comfortable place for us. And the one thing that I wanted, I knew we were jumping all in on this trip. And I did not want to come home to something that I regretted. And the Airstream was so beautiful on the inside and out. And being a photographer, that means a lot to me. And it just made sense to us.
All right. So the Airstream is certainly a smaller square footage than I'm assuming what your house was. Did you sell all of your things? I'm assuming you had furniture and tools and kitchen stuff and all of the normal things that a typical family would have in a house.
We sold just about everything. We got a storage shed to put some of my mother-in-law's furniture in, a bed in, some tools, and things like that. But I would say about 70% of our stuff we sold, because I kind of felt like, we weren't coming back to this area once we got started, and we might find another place to live, and I just didn't want all that junk attached to us.
Yep. You were an established wedding photographer in Nashville, which takes a long time to develop clientele and business. I mean, that's not an easy industry, and it's a lot of word of mouth. I mean, what were you walking away from by leaving Nashville from a income perspective?
That's a great question. A year ago, my answer would have been completely different. I'm chasing dreams, going after landscape photography and all that stuff. Now I can look back and say that was a really tough decision. Probably not the smartest decision I ever made, but it's filled our life with so much joy for the time that we've been out. But now, you're right, leaving all those clients behind in Nashville is super tough. And I thought it would be really easy to just get on a plane, go back to Nashville, and take all the pictures. And I did that for the whole entire year. In fact, we still made a living from wedding photography. The whole entire year we were gone in our Airstream. And what ended up happening is, those clients thought I was gone forever. And
Sure.
even though we try to communicate with them over and over, it's just, it's top of mind. If you're not top of mind in that industry, people are not going to think of you. And even though they may like your work better and work with you better, if you're not there, they just forget you. And that's kind of has been what's happened. It's been pretty tough the last 4 months since we've been here in Texas.
All right. Let me jump back just a quick second to when you were leaving Nashville, and then we'll fast forward to the last few months. So when you've packed everything up, your mother-in-law is in the truck, your son and wife are there, and you're driving out of Nashville. But what's going through your head at that time?
The things that's going through my head is, wow, this is crazy, and we're doing it. And it was a lot of excitement, a lot of unknown, because we didn't know how this whole entire journey was going to turn out. But we were just all super excited to be doing it. We loved how we were doing it. And it was just all 100% excitement.
Where were you going?
In fact, just to end that sentence there, we sold our house. We went to sign the papers with our Airstream, and we took off from that signing.
How did it feel driving away from that office?
That felt amazing. We made a little bit of profit off of the house, so it was nice to have some extra money, but it just felt amazing. We had no ties to worry about, no houses or renting a house out or anything else like that. So it felt pretty awesome. And
you chose to have your mother-in-law in the truck with you, but you said that it only lasted 7 days. What happened?
So that's probably the most interesting story of the trip is we could not leave my mother-in-law behind in Nashville. We were the ones taking care of her. But I really wanted to make this trip work. The only way it was going to work is if she came with us.
Okay.
So we had to buy a bigger Airstream so that she could fit in, and we got the 30-foot bunk Flying Cloud, which is separated on both ends, bunk beds on one, queen bed on the other. So we had some separation there. We bought a bigger truck to tow it with. We had to make a lot of changes to our plans to include her. And we got off. We went through all the states leading to Florida, and we visited with 2 of her friends along the way. And she was so happy to see them. They were so happy to see her. She hadn't seen them forever. One thing you need to know about my mother-in-law is that she survived glioblastoma cancer, which is less than a 1% chance of surviving that. And so she's kind of a walking miracle. And I came up with this idea to call our trip Showing Mom America.
Okay.
So I had showingmomamerica.com and all the social media. And, she likes to talk to people. So my thought was, I'm going to make her as famous as I can. And we're going to set off on this trip. And every time we pull into a campground, people are going to say, "Oh, you're Miss Kitty." That's her name, Kitty.
Okay.
And you're Miss Kitty. I've read about you. I've seen you. And that was the goal. In fact, I had it set up for Parade Magazine to have us on the cover of Parade Magazine for Mother's Day.
Wow.
And it was going to be Showing Mom America, our story, and everything. And I knew a writer for it. She loved the story. They loved the story. We hit the road, and that was the plan. 6 days into it, I called up my dad, and it was one of those conversations where I actually started crying on the phone because I was like, "Dad, man, I made a big mistake. I'm on this road. My mother-in-law is not liking it. She's complaining about a lot of stuff, and you have to realize she's 69 years old when we started this trip, survived brain cancer. So, she's a lot slower to do things, which is perfectly understandable, but it was hard for her to cope being in an Airstream. Looking back, I probably should have gotten a Class A or something. But anyways, on that 6th day, called him. He said, Joe, just stick with it. You're doing fine. And then I called the girl with Parade Magazine, and she said, Joe, let me know if this doesn't happen because I need to tell the editor right away. I said, okay, I will. So the next day, we're in Florida at a state park, and we don't have full hookups. And it's our first time without full hookups.
What does that mean?
I had to explain to Kitty. So full hookups are when you can have your waist, and so you have a waistline for your RV. You have a gray line, which is all your shower and washing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You have a connecting hose for your black tank, which is all the poop and everything else. And you have all the electricity that you could want.
Okay.
So basically, when you have full hookups, you can live life normally.
All right.
As you are used to doing it in a house. But this time, we did not have a black tank or a gray tank, which means we had plenty of electricity, but we did not have the ability to take long showers, wash dishes as much as we want because your tanks get full and you have to dump them. So our tanks were closed, and I had to tell Kitty, look, you can't take this long shower that you want to take. And she got pretty upset. I told her she couldn't have coffee because we didn't have enough electricity for the coffee maker, along with the air conditioning and everything else. And she got upset about that. And her and I got into a little, not an argument, but a strong discussion.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, I need to walk out of this Airstream and have some time by myself. So I went over and started hanging up a hammock in the state park. And it wasn't 30 seconds later, I hear the door of the Airstream slam open, as loud as it could be slammed. And I hear her yell as loud as she can, I'm in hell, as loud as she could. I went back. I was like, Kitty, what's wrong? And she said, I'm done with this. Take me to Tallahassee, drop me off with my best friend, and leave me there. I am done with this whole RV thing. And I said, okay. And then Showing Mom America was done. It was all finished. And that was the end of her time with us.
All right. So let's get from Tallahassee to Texas. But first, we're going to take a quick break for a sponsor.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Click Placement, a digital agency designing Google AdWords and pay-per-click marketing strategies for startups, small businesses, and even people building a side hustle. Hit up clickplacement.com to start a conversation. If you would like to personally support the Go Hunt Life podcast, go to patreon.com/Go Hunt Life to make a donation.
All right, we're back with Joe, and so far we are 6 days into the RV trip from Nashville to Florida, and your wife's mother has had enough, and she is out of the RV, and so now it's just you, your wife, and your son. I'm assuming heading west from Tallahassee. What transpired after that?
We had to make a decision on what we were going to do with the rest of this year, because we had planned for a year, not knowing what we were going to do after that. So we said, well, let's keep going and let's do landscape photography, because one of the sole reasons for doing this, besides my wife, coming alive and my son having an awesome time, was for me to grow my landscape photography portfolio, because I took some really amazing pictures and they sold well. And I thought, man, I would love to make a living this way, because I don't want to do weddings for the rest of my life. So we continued on. And we decided to shoot as many landscapes as possible, and that's what we did. We just went to Florida, the whole south part of the United States, all the way over to California, and we shot as many landscapes as we could at nighttime, morning time. I mean, I hustled more than I had ever hustled before in my life, and we got some pretty amazing pictures out of it.
Yeah, let's talk about the business side of that. Landscape photography, plus you said that you were flying back and forth to Nashville to do weddings.
Right.
How do you sell landscape photography? Online, through Getty Images? Like, how do you get paid for that?
So there's a few different ways to do it. The way I did it's probably not the best, but I went to friends and people who knew who I was, and I started selling pictures to them. And along the way, I came up with this amazing idea called the giving print, and it ended up taking over, and that's actually what I'm focusing on now. And that is the sole way that I make money off of landscapes besides doing the occasional gallery.
And what is the giving print?
So I don't think I've told you about the giving print, but for my birthday last year, I gave away about 100 and something pictures to people who knew somebody who needed a pick-me-up. And the goal was is the picture didn't go to them. It went to the people they were thinking of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And,
that's a pretty good idea.
It took off. Thank you. And it took off really great. And then I thought, well, how can I do this forever? Just give away prints and make a living. And then it dawned on me, I'm going to sell my prints in 8.5 by 11 form. And every time you buy a print, you're going to get 2. One for yourself and one for you to give to someone else. And that's the concept of it.
That sounds like a great idea. How are you? Okay. So, and when did you come up with this? How long ago?
I came up with this at the end of last year. We started kicking it off, and it did really good. But I've always been really terrible at getting the word out to people. I'm not a really good marketer. And so it's kind of died off a little bit, but it's coming back big time to a website called Patreon where people can help support the giving print. And Patreon is kind of something like Kickstarter, but it's on a monthly basis.
Gotcha. Okay. Patreon.com/The Giving Print if you guys want to check out that page. All right. So you had mentioned earlier in our conversation, though, that it's been more difficult than what you had expected. And the last 4 months have been a challenge. Like what's happened in the last 4 months?
So in the last 4 months, a year has gone by. So actually, 1.5 years has gone by since we hit the road for the first time.
Okay.
And now we need to take care of my mother-in-law. Her time in Tallahassee with her best friend was up, and we had to start taking care of her again, which we are more than glad to do because we love her so much. We wouldn't think of it any other way. But we found this place in South Texas called Brockville. They have a fort there called Fort Clark Springs, and it's honestly an amazing place for older people who are retired and they drive around on a golf cart. She can have all the freedom that she wants in the world, and she's making friends here. And anyways, we came here because she could just have her freedom, and that's what we wanted to give her more than anything. And so now she bought a house here, and we're kind of not stuck, but we are here for a little while taking care of her.
Okay. You're still living out of the Airstream.
We are. I kind of feel like we are living in a trailer park now.
All right. I mean, are you in an RV park?
No, we're in a residential place, but with a covering for a trailer with full hookups and 50 amp power.
All right. So you've been you're 1.5 years in. And like, how has your wife and son adapted over the last 1.5 years? Did you accomplish your goal of that joy that they experienced on your vacation 2 years ago?
We definitely did. The goal was to see my wife and kid come alive in a way I'd never seen them before, and that's exactly what happened. It was pretty amazing. The only thing that I did not anticipate was the fact that I would be in a small town in the middle of nowhere trying to make a living for my family, and it's a lot tougher than I ever imagined it would be, especially with landscape photography, because out here people don't spend a lot of money for big, huge landscapes, where in Nashville I could probably easily get $2,000 to $4,000 for one landscape with a custom frame and everything. But here, I kind of wanted to try the same prices, but I just know it's not going to go over well because people, they're retired, but it's just a small town atmosphere, and people just don't pay that money around here.
So what are you going to do? What are your options? You're in a town where you said it's a retirement community, which means there's not a lot of options for wedding photography, and they're not purchasing your landscape photos. So what are your options? Is it only Patreon and selling things online, or is there another plan?
So Patreon, I hope, will be a big moneymaker for us in the future, but it's not our only plan. I'm going to get back into family photography. I'm starting over. Whereas in Nashville, I charge $500 for a family session. Here, I'm charging $250, and I want to start taking more pictures of family, experiencing all the people around me, because I'm all about the relationships. And the small town is really wonderful for relationships, and there's people out here with ranches. There's all kinds of stuff to do, but we're basically starting over. I'm still doing wedding photography. We're trying to advertise in San Antonio. One of the big things down here is quinceañeras. I'm still trying to learn how to say that. And I'm going to learn to take pictures of that. And the thing is I can take pictures of anything. You just put me in front of it, I'll take those pictures. But we're focusing a lot of attention on the giving prints, taking family pictures, and I'm doing a gallery in a town called Del Rio, where I'm putting up huge prints for sale. We're just going to see how that goes over. I have no idea. I'm kind of just walking on faith at this point.
At all, any thought of going back to Nashville and trying to fire that back up?
I have definitely thought about that many times. And there's no doubt that if we went back to Nashville, it'd be so much easier to make a living. But our life has changed. Now that we've experienced life on the road full time, it's kind of hard to go back to a big city like that. I've gone back many times this year, and things just are so fast there. And I've gotten to the point where I've slowed down a lot. I take my time, and I love this lifestyle. We're just going to have to change, the way we live. And we might have to eventually sell the Airstream. We'd love to keep it forever if we can, but I'm going to do whatever I have to do for my family first. And then we'll see where God leads us next.
Got it. All right. So looking back now in the last year and a half, you've been to what would be your top 3 national parks that if anyone has never gone to a national park, you've got to go to these 3 first? Which ones should they go to first?
I would say you need to go to Grand Teton National Park more than any other. It's just absolutely amazing to see those mountains just pop out of the ground like that. And there's no foothills there, so it's just flat land, and then all of a sudden you see amazing mountains. Second, I would say Joshua Tree National Park is absolutely amazing. It's one of those places where you see trees that you've never seen before in your life. And I would say the next place, I'll have to think about this for a second. Those are my 2 favorite. Oh, White Sands National Monument. It's not a park, but it's a monument. And that place just blew me away because it's just sand dunes everywhere in the middle of nowhere. And there's nothing like it. It's really cool.
All right. So what would you have done differently? You came back to Nashville, and 6 months after returning from vacation a couple years ago, you had sold your house and almost everything in it, got in an RV. Like how would you have done things differently if you could have had a do-over?
I would have planned ahead a lot more for work. I would have been either better at marketing, or I would have got somebody to market for me, because I'm just not the best marketer in the world. And we had an amazing story to tell. It just needed to be told by somebody. And, honestly, we just want to do photography, and we want to be with our family. Marketing is the last thing on our mind. And that's the main thing I would do. And for anybody else who is thinking about living full-time in an RV, I say 100% go do it, because you'll experience things that other people will never experience in their life. And it'll change you forever, because you will live on less, and you will just appreciate nature and life so much more.
All right, Joe, that is all I've got for you. You can find Joe at joehendricks.com, and also, as he mentioned, thegivingprint.com, and also Patreon at The Giving Print. And if you want to check out his amazing, amazing photos on Instagram, it's at Joe Hendricks. All right, Joe, that is all I've got for you today.
I appreciate you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Don't forget to hit up the rock stars at printdirtcheap.com. Use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. For fast, cheap, and high-quality online printing, it's printdirtcheap.com. Hey, Life Hunters. Thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at GoHuntLife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.